everyone, welcome back to the Speedrunner 028 December Mania. In the last video of the series, we did Pokemon Sapphire with the Hoenn starter trio, Sceptile, Blaziken, and Swampert. And those three are honestly quite interesting starter Pokemon to deal with. I'm not going to say too much just to avoid spoilers, but today though, we are going to be doing probably one of the biggest videos I've ever worked on. We are going to be doing Pokemon Leaf Green with the Eeveelutions, Vaporeon, Jolteon, Flareon, Espeon, and Umbreon. Yes, you've heard that correctly. This will be a 5-in-1 versus race. So let's just cut the crap and just get straight into the run. Since this is going to be 5 Pokemon in one video instead of 3, I'm going to be covering this versus race a bit differently than the other ones. I'll be talking about one split at a time, such as talking about Brock, then to Misty, stuff like that, and I'm going to be going heavily back and forth between all 5 of our contenders. Because if I do it the way I did it for the last few videos, this run would probably be 3 hours long, and I'm sure you guys don't want that. I definitely don't. So for the first section of the game, which we go up to Brock, I'm going to talk about Vaporeon first and then go in Pokédex order. So all of the Eeveelutions have the same base stat total with a total of 525, but they're all spread differently. Every one of the Eeveelutions does have 130 in one of its stats, and a second stat with 110. Vaporeon has 130 HP, 65 attack, 60 defense, 110 special attack, 95 special defense, and 65 speed. So Vaporeon is going to hit hard with its water type attacks because all water moves in this game are special moves. So at least Vaporeon will have the stats to do huge damage with those moves. But let's talk about the Vaporeon moveset. What I will mention off the bat is that every single Eeveelution we do will start with the same 3 to 4 moves: Helping Hand, Tackle, Tail Whip, and Sand Attack. Then at level 16, every one of them gets a same type attack bonus move, and then after that, things diverge. But for Vaporeon, at level 16, we get Water Gun, and then Quick Attack, Bite, Aurora Beam, which is actually quite useful, Haze and Acid Armor, which I don't think I'm going to use, and then at level 52, we get Hydro Pump. And obviously, since Vaporeon's a water type, we do get all of the water type HMs, which is Surf and Waterfall. But Waterfall's in the post game, so I'm just going to teach it Surf. And besides, since like I stated earlier, all water type moves are special, Waterfall is literally just a weaker version of Surf. With HMs out of the way, our notable TMs include Water Pulse, Ice Beam, Blizzard, Iron Tail, Return, Dig, Shadow Ball, and Secret Power. So I can guarantee our final moveset's going to have a Water and Ice move on it, and then maybe Shadow Ball for coverage? We'll see, because Shadow Ball is in the game corner, so I'm not sure if we'll get it or not, but you never know. Then on the early routes of the game, I catch a Pidgey and a Rattata for Cut and Fly later. Rattata can also learn Dig if I choose not to teach it to my Vaporeon. Our Surf and Strength user will be the Lapras we get from Silphco. Also, you may begin to notice with Vaporeon just how much training I'm doing. Here's the thing, I can guarantee you for sure, none of the Eeveelutions in today's video are going to be able to take on Brock below level 16 because none of them are going to be able to take out Brock with just Tackle. So since every Eeveelution has to train up to level 16 for Brock, I'm going to go over to everybody else's footage and talk about their stats while everyone else trains. Jolteon has 65 HP, 65 attack, 60 defense, 110 special attack, just like Vaporeon, 95 special defense, and 130 speed. So Jolteon is the fastest of the group and has quite nice special attack for its electric type moves, but the main problem is that Jolteon's not going to have a good time hitting rock and ground types. But if we take a look at our moveset, at level 16 we get Thunder Shock, and then Quick Attack, Double Kick, Pin Missile, Thunder Wave, Agility, and then Thunder. And then Jolteon doesn't get that many TMs, but the best ones it gets are Iron Tail, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Return, Dig, Shadow Ball, Shockwave, and Secret Power. Although if I want to, I could teach Rain Dance in combination with Thunder, but I'm not sure I'm going to be doing that. Alright, now for Flareon. Flareon has 65 HP, 130 attack, 60 defense, 95 special attack, 110 special defense, and 65 speed. So Flareon is not that fast, but its physical attack is really good. But the main problem with Flareon having really good physical attack is that all fire-type moves deal special damage, so my fire-type moves will use my smaller special attack, but 95 is still pretty good. At level 16 we get Ember, and followed by Quick Attack, Bite, Fire Spin, and Smog, which is trash. I don't know why this thing gets Leer at level 47, and then at level 52 we get Flamethrower. That is actually really good because Flamethrower you have to get from the game corner. So if I wanted to get Flamethrower but I couldn't learn it by level up, I would have had to buy it for 80,000 coins. Although level 52 is really late, I might end up buying it before then, we'll see. And then for our TMs, we get Iron Tail, Return, Dig, Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Secret Power, and Overheat. Alright, now for the Johtonian Eeveelutions. Espeon, we have 65 HP, 65 attack, 60 defense, 130 special attack, 95 special defense, and 110 speed. So we're basically very fast, hard-hitting special attackers, but we cannot handle a physical move that well. And honestly, Espeon's moveset does kind of work well with Kanto due to how many poison types there are. At level 16, we'll get Confusion, and then we can get Quick Attack and Swift, which are physical, so I don't care about those. Level 36, we get an upgrade, which is Psybeam, and then Psych Up, which is useless. All it does is just copy the opponent's stat changes. So like if the opponent used a Swords Dance, I could Psych Up it, but that's a very niche move. And then at level 47, we get Psychic, and level 52, Morning Sun. Morning Sun is a very trash move in this game. It only heals a quarter of your max HP, but it heals half of your HP if there's sun out in this game. So I can guarantee you I'm not using this move. And then we actually get some pretty good TMs. Pretty much all the Eeveelutions get Iron Tail, Return, Dig, and Shadow Ball, but we also get the TM for Calm Mind and Psychic. So having access to Calm Mind, which will boost our special attack and special defense by 1 stage, is going to be a very good move to have. But we're not going to have access to that until after Sabrina, so that's going to be quite a ways from now. And finally, our last Eeveelution, Umbreon. We have 95 HP, 65 attack, 110 defense, 60 special attack, 130 special defense, and 65 speed. So Umbreon is basically very slow. It cannot hit hard with either physical or special, but if you combine its high defenses with its HP, it's going to survive a lot of hits, so maybe that'll help us out too. And at level 16, our same type attack bonus dark type move will be Pursuit, and then we'll get Quick Attack, Confuse Ray, Feint Attack, which is a dark type version of Swift, and then Mean Look, Screech, and Moonlight. So pretty much past level 36 by level up, we're not getting anything good. And then with TMs, we get the same as the others, Iron Tail, Return, Dig, and Shadow Ball, but we also get Psychic if we wanted to, and I can get Secret Power for a better hitting physical move. So it's honestly quite interesting that Umbreon, being a dark type, can actually learn Psychic. That will actually come in handy for being Kanto. Alright, that is all the information you need to know for our 5 contenders. So for the early Brock split, I'm going to be fighting all of the trainers that I can, including the optional rival and the Light Years Junior trainer before Brock. And with every one of these guys, I'm going to get straight to level 16. So with all of our contenders, starting with Vaporeon, I'm going to skip ahead straight to level 16 and see how it handles Brock. As soon as I get to level 16, I have the move Water Gun, which both of Brock's Pokemon are 4 times weak to, so I defeat each of his Pokemon in one shot, and I get a Brock split of 29 minutes and 49 seconds. For Jolteon, I actually decide to go into Brock using Struggle because at level 16 I get Thundershock, which is not going to help Jolteon at all. So I have to come into the fight with only Struggle, but unfortunately on my first attempt at him, I get a loss. If you see that I already had a reset on the counter before even trying Brock, I tried to fight the Junior Light Years trainer with Struggle, but I leveled up to level 16 and I would have learned Thundershock over a move which would have deleted Struggle. So the main goal was to level up a certain way to where I can defeat both of his Geodude and Onix with Struggle. Here's how Struggle works. Struggle will deal a quarter of the damage dealt to the opponent in recoil, and Struggle is a typeless move, so it will hit all of his Pokemon for neutral damage. However, it still uses physical attack, which Jolteon is not really known for. Plus, Brock's Pokemon have very high defensive stats. I then ended up deciding maybe I should just level up to 16, get Thundershock, heal at the center, and maybe just try Brock with tackle spamming, but that was clearly not a good idea. Then I tried again at level 18 and the same result still happened. You know, I really should have stuck to the struggle strat because that was the only move that was actually doing damage, so I honestly think I played Jolteon quite poorly, because I could have saved so many failed attempts on Brock by just grinding to like level 18 or something and just trying the struggle strat. However though, eventually, 10 resets into the run, Jolteon at level 21 finally defeats Brock with a time of 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 53 seconds. Holy mother f***, that was so bad. So I can guarantee you, Jolteon is not winning this race. For Flareon, I have the move Ember on my moveset, and even though Brock's Pokemon resist fire, due to their very low special defense, they may as well just be weak to fire because Ember is able to 3-shot the Geodude. And then on the Onix, I use 1 Ember to do a quarter, and then I get hit with Rock Tomb. However, the AI tends to view Rock Tomb as a form of speed control, so once the Flareon becomes slower than the Onix, it tends to stop going for that move, and then Flareon defeats Brock with a time of 22 minutes on the dot. For Espeon, I now have Confusion on my moveset, and Confusion one-shots the Geodude and it one-shots the Onix. I get to level 17, and Espeon gets a Brock split of 27 minutes and 35 seconds. Alright, now we've just got Umbreon. For Umbreon, I now have the move Pursuit, and Pursuit is a 2-shot on the Geodude because Umbreon's offensive stats are not good, but when the Onix delivers a Rock Tomb, it only does like 5 damage to me. So my defenses are going to prove quite useful, I hope. Although I hope that isn't negated by our low attack stats. But anyway, Umbreon defeats Brock and gets a split of 26 minutes and 17 seconds. So yeah, you can tell we pretty much only have 4 contenders for first place because Jolteon being over an hour is just terrible. But I will say though, if at level 16 it got Double Kick instead of Thundershock, I think it could still contend, but that Brock split was just way too terrible. But with the other 4, Flareon is actually in the lead, and second place is actually Umbreon. Espeon is actually shortly behind, but Vaporeon is in 4th place. Mostly is because Flareon has had 0 resets, while the others have had anywhere from 1 to 6 resets. And unless I showed it, those resets were not on Brock, they were probably on somebody like Rival 1A with the sand attacking Pidgey, or maybe a random bug catcher I didn't save before. But I didn't want to show all that just because the training montage would have been so long. So now we're going to go over the next section of the game where we're going to defeat Misty, rescue Bill, and then take out Lieutenant Surge. How I'm basically going to cover it here, instead of having chapters for this versus race and then I show off all the Pokemon, I'll just talk about the route you have to go through the game, and then I'll mention what each Pokemon had to do there, and maybe if one of them struggled at that point. So on Route 3 before Mount Moon, most of the Eeveelutions except Jolteon actually take out pretty much all the optional trainers here, because a lot of them are definitely going to need training for later. Main reason I skipped training with Jolteon is just because of how high of a level I needed to train for Brock. But they were all able to handle the training pretty easily due to that point being overleveled. Then in Mount Moon, with Vaporeon, I actually continued the optional training and did a bunch of the trainers in here as well, because the second gym leader is Misty and the third one is Lieutenant Surge, which are not going to be good type advantages for Vaporeon. I also did optional training with Flareon and Umbreon as well. Espeon and Jolteon were the only ones I actually skipped Mount Moon training because Espeon is not going to struggle during the early game due to its psychic typing, and Jolteon, as I've stated before, is just way too overleveled at this point. And then with Mount Moon gone, all of them arrive in Cerulean City. So now the main question arises, do I do Rival 2 or Misty first? I'm going to talk about the ones that fought Misty first. For Vaporeon, I actually do fight Rival 2 first, but as you can see, I actually went into the gym to fight the 2 gym trainers just to get a bit more extra experience for Rival 2. The only trainer I actually fight Misty before Rival 2 is Jolteon, and that's because Jolteon has a type advantage over her whole team. She has a Staryu and a Starmie, and they both go down very easily to Thundershock. So now that Jolteon has defeated Misty, let's see how everybody takes on Rival 2. But since we're still on Jolteon, we may as well just see how he does first. Rival 2 leads with Pidgeotto, and the first thing I do is go for Thundershock, which is a one-hit KO. Then on the Rattata, its defenses are quite weak, so one Thundershock takes it out. And then on the Charmander, it survives a Thundershock, but luckily it can't survive a second one. and then on the Abra, it just goes down to 1 Thundershock due to just being a bad Pokemon. All the Eeveelutions had a very good time with Rival 2, but the one who probably had the most amount of difficulty was Espeon because it did get hit with 1 Sand Attack, but it was able to still hit its move, so we're just fine in the end. The Route 24 and 25 trainers are pretty much easy for any Pokemon you do because all the Pokemon are quite low leveled. All of them had a very easy time getting up to Bill, except for one, Jolteon. As you can see here, the 3rd trainer on the Nugget Bridge is youngster Timmy, and he has a Sandshrew. I didn't prepare for the Sandshrew, so I used 1 quick attack and it crit doing over half, but then I unfortunately start getting hit with Sand Attacks. I'm willing to bet you can see the problem. Then on the Ekans, I get hit with Intimidate, I miss a quick attack, I get hit with Leer, I miss another quick attack, I get hit with Bite, and then we're just trading hits with each other while I keep missing and missing and missing. And then after a while, the Ekans actually poisons me with Poison Sting, and then after a while, the poison is actually able to knock me out, and I hadn't saved before this guy, so I actually need to black out. So with the Rattata here, I just have to spam Tail Whip and just wait for it. So yeah, this part just ain't fun. Although the Pidgey only has Tackle, but luckily the Ekans just kept attacking, so I'm able to eventually black out, so yeah, that was kinda bad. But honestly, that's not bad play on my part, that's completely on Jolteon. I did mention at the start of the video that Jolteon was really going to struggle with rock and ground types, especially for this reason. Plus, as you saw there, with Jolteon, I actually did not get Secret Power because I am not able to fight the Hiker that I would have to fight in order to get Secret Power. But with every other Eeveelution in this video, I actually did get Secret Power and deleted it over Quick Attack. And then funnily enough, when I eventually free Bill, I forgot to talk to him again to get the SS ticket, and I went all the way down to Cerulean and tried to enter the Dig House, but then I couldn't get in because the guard was still there. So I looked in my bag and I'm like, oh dang it. So I have to go back up and talk to Bill, and since I've already fought Misty, I move on south to Vermilion City to the SS Anne. But while I have Jolteon do that, I'm going to go over how every other Pokemon did on Misty. Starting with Vaporeon, I go for a Secret Power on Staryu, almost knocking it out, and then I paralyze it. Misty uses a Super Potion, which just delays the inevitable. And then on the Starmie, I go for Secret Power, doing a 3rd. Swift does not do that much due to Vaporeon's high defense, and then I first try Misty very easily. And my reward for it is the TM for Water Pulse, which I will be replacing Water Gun with. Water Pulse is a 60 base power water type move with a chance to confuse, so with the same type attack bonus, this is going to be dealing some serious damage. For Flareon, I have a type disadvantage obviously, but Flareon has the highest attack stat of all the Eeveelutions. I mean, just look at it, my attack stat is 97 at this point. Secret Power actually 2-shots the Starmie, which is very impressive. I think Espeon might be a little tricky just because the lead Starmie is part Psychic and is resisted to confusion. But on the Starmie, I just go for Secret Power doing a 3rd, and then I get hit with Bubble Beam and unfortunately get confused, and then Starmie uses Recover. So as you can see, I am definitely starting to struggle because I'm not able to do enough damage to cancel out the recovery, and then at 17 health left, I break out of confusion, start spamming Secret Powers, one of them paralyzes, the Starmie couldn't move, and I actually won on the first try in low red health. That was actually so close to a reset, but I'm honestly glad it didn't. Finally, we have Umbreon. Secret Power surprisingly one-shots the Staryu, and then on the Starmie it outspeeds, goes for Water Pulse, and Pursuit does a 3rd to Starmie, and then after a few turns, I am able to knock out the Starmie. So Umbreon's high defenses pretty much left it at only half HP for the whole fight, so that's good to see. Now it is time for everyone to go down to Vermilion City, board the SS Anne, and defeat Rival 3. I want to go back over to Vaporeon's footage for a minute because on this route right here, Route 6, there is a Citrus Berry and a Rare Candy I will be getting with every single Pokemon. Rare Candy because, duh, it's a Rare Candy. And the Citrus Berry is for an emergency. A Citrus Berry heals a flat 30 HP when consumed, so early game, that can actually help out. Anyway, the first thing I do when entering Vermilion City is to get the Versus Seeker. A bunch of our Eeveelution friends are going to be doing Versus Seeker training for the Elite Four, because the Fire Red and Leaf Green Elite Four is honestly one of the hardest Elite Fours in all of Generation 3, especially the Champion. So a lot of them are going to need absurdly high levels in order to win. So the Versus Seeker is an absolute must. And then in Vermilion City, I go to the Pokemon Mart to buy my usual Super Potions and Repels, which I will do with every Pokemon, so I only have to mention that once. And then with Vaporeon, I board the SS Sand. While down in the basement level here, I get the Hyper Potion as well as a Super Potion. And then in this room is the TM for Rest. In all of my Leaf Green playthroughs, just like with Yellow version, I always grab the Rest TM as a backup, because if I need Rest in the Elite Four as an emergency strat, like I have no other choice, I cannot go back and get Rest because the ship left. So I get Rest, and then in the kitchen, I get the Trash Can Berries, which is a Cherry Berry, Chesto Berry, and a Pecha Berry, and then that's pretty much all you can get on this boat, so I go over to Rival 3. He leads with Pidgeotto, and then one Water Pulse takes it out. Next up is the Raticate. One Water Pulse completely destroys it, of course. Then the Kadabra, even though Water Pulse is a special move, it still gets destroyed by it. And obviously Charmeleon is weak to water, so there you go. For Jolteon, Thundershock is able to one-shot the Pidgeotto due to being weak to electric. And then on the Raticate, it lives a Thundershock, but then I paralyze it, and the only thing it does to me is use a Tail Whip. Then on the Kadabra, I go for Thundershock, leaving it in red health. Then I get hit with a critical hit Confusion. And then finally on the Charmeleon, a Thundershock does half, I get hit with Ember, and I'm able to move on from Rival 3. Now for Flareon's turn. Secret Power one-shots the Pidgeotto. Then on the Raticate, I use Secret Power. I'm pretty much just spamming Secret Power for a lot of fights I do with Flareon, just because look at my stats. I have 104 attack to 67 special attack. Like, obviously I'm going to go with Secret Power. Before I talk about the SS Sand with Espeon, on the Rocket Grunt here who gives Dig, the innocent bystander, I forgot to heal after Misty, so I had to take out his whole team with only 6 HP. I'm able to one-hit the Machop, but then the Drowsy, I was so close to one-shotting but I didn't, but luckily the Drowsy just wasted its turn with Disable, so I was able to win. If I had lost there, I would have had to fight Misty again, so it's a good thing I didn't lose. You know what? I think that's the second time Espeon has had a close reset, but it never reset. Anyway, on Rival 3, Confusion one-shots the Pidgeotto, I level up to level 27, and then on the Raticate, it gets one-shot by Confusion, and then on the Kadabra, I use Confusion just because no matter what move I use, it's going to be a 2-hit, and then on the Charmeleon, I use one Confusion to knock it out. And this is actually the lowest level completion upon Rival 3, because Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon all beat the Rival at level 29 after leveling up during the fight, while Espeon is 2 levels lower. And that's because with Espeon, I did not do as much Mount Moon training as they did. Umbreon is definitely going to have the hardest time with Rival 3 just because it's not able to hit hard with either physical or special moves. For example, on the Pidgeotto, Pursuit doesn't even two-shot it. Although if you look, I am at a lower level than what Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Flareon were, but still, now that I have 2 sand attacks up, I'm going to be constantly missing moves, and I'm not able to get Feint Attack for another 10 levels. But luckily, due to my high defense and HP stat, I am able to survive quite a lot of hits, so I will have time to eventually break through the sand attacks and win, which is what I end up doing. Which is what I would have said if I actually won. The Charmeleon was left at 1 HP left, I couldn't hit it, and then after a long painstaking battle, I get knocked out and I get a reset. On the second try though, I'm actually able to pass the Pidgeotto with 0 sand attacks, so I'm able to win quite easily. So I'm just gonna accumulate that loss to just bad luck. And then with Umbreon, I get cut, leave the ship, and at this point, if you struggle with Lieutenant Surge, like if you're weak to electric, you can delay Surge until later and go back to Rock Tunnel. But with all of my Eeveelution buddies, I'm not going to be doing that. So I teach Cut to my Paris, and then I enter Lieutenant Surge's gym, have the trash can puzzle automatically solved thanks to Gamehook, defeat Gentleman Tucker that blocks the way to Lieutenant Surge. He just has a single Pikachu, he's really not that threatening. Plus on the kitchen in the SS Sand, there was a Cherry Berry in one of the trash cans, so I can actually hold the Cherry Berry to make this fight safer, which I generally almost always do. But in case I don't, you can see my held item underneath the Pokemon image in the top left corner of your screen. And now, let's take on Lieutenant Surge with all 5 of our contenders. Starting with Umbreon, on the Voltorb, I have Dig on my moveset. All of the Eeveelutions can learn Dig, so I use Dig to one-shot the Voltorb. one-shot the Pikachu. Luckily, Pikachu's static does not paralyze me. And then on the Raichu, I go for Dig. I hit it, dealing almost all of its health, and then static paralyzes me. But due to my Umbreon's ability, which is Synchronize, when I got paralyzed with static, the Raichu got paralyzed too. But Lieutenant Surge has a full heal for that, so he is able to get rid of it and start setting up double teams. Uh-oh, this isn't good. I'm able to go underground and actually knock out the Raichu, and Umbreon gets a Surge split of 46 minutes and 4 seconds. Let's just talk about Jolteon now, because Jolteon's pretty much not winning this race. I also have Dig on my moveset, but I misclick and go for Quick Attack on the Voltorb, and I accidentally went into this fight paralyzed because I forgot to heal like an idiot. And then on the Pikachu, while it's setting up double team, I actually land a Dig and I knock it out. And finally is the Raichu. It goes for a turn 1 double team, I'm paralyzed. It double teams again, I'm paralyzed. I get hit with Quick Attack, I finally go underground, and then Dig misses. So I decided I should probably just reset and heal up, which is exactly what I did. And then back to the Raichu, I go underground, it goes for double team, and then Dig is able to one-shot the Raichu, and I get a Surge split of 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 29 seconds. Now it's Espeon's turn. On the Voltorb, I go for Confusion, which knocks it out in 1 hit. I level up to level 28 over a damage rounding threshold, and then Confusion one-shots the Pikachu, and now we're on to the Raichu. One Confusion does 2/3, I get paralyzed with Thunder Wave, but then Synchronize paralyzes the Raichu, causing Surge to waste his 1 turn to use a full heal, and I'm able to hit a second Confusion and get a Surge split of 44 minutes and 11 seconds. And finally, we have Flareon. I have Dig, but on the Voltorb I just go for Secret Power. I'm pretty much just spamming Secret Power because my attack stat, as I've stated for the umpteenth time, is so high I really don't need to worry about using Dig, so I just keep spamming Secret Power, and Raichu gets a Surge split of 40 minutes and 29 seconds. So if we compare all of our splits, Flareon is still in the lead right now, but this time Espeon is in second place, with Umbreon and Vaporeon around 2 minutes behind, and Jolteon is in a league all of its own. But to be honest, let me tell you, even though Flareon is in first place right now, a 40-minute Surge split is quite poor. You gotta remember, every one of our contenders had to grind until at least level 16 for Brock. Although Jolteon had to grind a bit higher, but that's not the point. The point is, the Eeveelutions aren't exactly the best Pokemon to do solo runs with because oftentimes their strength is in a stat you really don't need its strength to be in. But still, it's early on in the race, anything can happen. So for our next section of our Kanto playthroughs, we're going to be going through Rock Tunnel, heading into Celadon City, and then we're going to end it off by getting the Poké Flute. The reason I like to have the Poké Flute as a split is because right after the Poké Flute is when we do a massive boss rush. So we're going to be going into the mid-game of our playthrough. You know what, this time, why don't we stick to Flareon for now as we talk about this area of the game. And then with the bike voucher obtained, I run back up to Cerulean City, get the bike, and then I can proceed east towards Route 9 and into Rock Tunnel. This area of the game I like to call the Route 9 Rock Tunnel Gauntlet of Trainers, just because there's so many trainers here and their Pokemon generally are not that good, but there are some trainers that can be a struggle with some Pokemon. For Flareon, one of those trainers is this hiker right here with 2 Onix. I have to dig underground while it misses a Rock Tomb, and then on his second Onix I do the same thing. It's a good thing I have high attack because I think with every other Eeveelution, Dig is not going to one-shot those things. And then on the Geodude, I go for Dig. Luckily, it does not use Magnitude, which does double the damage if you're underground, and I'm able to move on from him. But he's not the last hiker. The last hiker is Hiker Dudley, formerly known as the self-destructing hiker of Gen 1. All of his Pokemon have Magnitude on their moveset, and Dig is pretty much one of the best ways to take him out, but with Magnitude, that's really not a good idea. But on the first Geodude, I go for Dig anyway, and do you see how much damage Magnitude did? Yeah. So then on the second Geodude, I just go for Ember, doing 3/4, and it just goes for Mud Sport. Then on the Graveler, I use Bite, and it actually one-shots. So yeah, if I had chosen to use Dig, and I got hit with Magnitude, I would have had a reset there. Flareon still has not had a reset to this point. I want to see how long I can keep it that way. And then I take out the rest of the trainers, and then I eventually make it through Lavender Town and into Celadon City. The first thing I do is heal at the center, And then in this building right here, I go ahead and get the T. This is the item you need to get to Saffron City, but we're not going to be heading to Saffron just yet. Unlike Generation 1, I cannot do the Marowak Pokédoll skip, so I actually do have to go into the Rocket Hideout and take out Giovanni. Giovanni is actually a pretty difficult fight for a lot of Pokemon, mostly due to his Kangaskhan. So we're just going to skip all these rockets that literally no one struggles with and just go straight to Giovanni. Giovanni starts off with his level 25 Onix. I go for Dig, misses his Rock Throw, and then I almost knock it out, but not quite. And then it hits me with a Bind, so I just use Bite to finish it off. Now for the Rhyhorn. The Rhyhorn is really not that scary, although it uses a scary face, pun not intended. And now my speed is cut in half for the Kangaskhan, which is not good. Kangaskhan goes for Tail Whip, I go for Secret Power doing a third, I get a Clutch Paralysis, so now I outspeed it, and the Kangaskhan didn't even once damage me, so yeah, that was pretty lucky. I then obtain the Sylph Scope, and then I dig out of here. And then once I get out, I go into the Celadon department store and do some shopping. I buy my usual supply of super potions and super repels, but for Flareon, that's pretty much all I buy for now because I'm not going to buy vitamins right now. And besides, I want to wait till later where I can buy more vitamins, but I will just spoil it right now. I'm not going to be buying vitamins with Flareon because I'm going to be saving up money to purchase Flamethrower from the game corner, because level 52 is way too late to learn it, so I need the move sooner rather than later. And then I get the HM for Fly, teach it to my Pidgey, and then I head on over back to Lavender Town and into Pokemon Tower where I fight Rival 4. He leads off like before with his level 25 Pidgeotto. Secret Power is able to one-shot it. Next up is his Gyarados. It goes for Intimidate, lowering my attack. So then I switch over to Bite, which is a special move in this game, and Bite's able to 3-shot the Gyarados. Luckily the Gyarados doesn't have a water type move yet, because at this point Gyarados doesn't have it by level up. And then I use Bite to take out his Execute and Kadabra quite quickly. I deny the chance to learn Fire Spin because this is not Gen 1. And then on the Charmeleon, I use Bite, and then the Charmeleon tries to use Ember on me, but it activates my Flash Fire ability. Flareon's ability Flash Fire basically means if I get hit with a Fire type move, I take 0 damage, but it boosts the power of my Fire type moves. So that's actually really funny. It's going to be nice exploiting the AI like that. I then go through the Pokemon Tower, send the Marowak to hell by burning it with Ember, or biting its soul. And then I rescue Mr. Fuji and get the Poké Flute with a split time of 54 minutes and 59 seconds. Almost 55 on the dot, but let's see how the others do. I'm not going to talk about the rock tunnel sections of the game since they pretty much don't struggle with any of it, but if any of them do struggle, I will bring it up. With Vaporeon, I have no struggles up until the first Giovanni battle in the Rocket Hideout, so I take out his Onix and his Rhyhorn with Water Pulse due to them being 4 times weak to water. I level up to level 35, and now on the Kangaskhan, Water Pulse does a third, I get hit with Tail Whip lowering my defense, and then it just goes for Bite doing very little damage. And then in the Celadon department store, I only buy super potions and super repels, and I don't buy anything, because Vaporeon will also be buying something from the game corner later, so I need to save up my money. Now is Rival 4. On the Pidgeotto, it uses Quick Attack on me, but then one Water Pulse takes it out. Then on the Execute, I misclick and go for Water Pulse, but then I realized it almost took it out, so I just keep spamming the move. And then Water Pulse takes out the Kadabra, and then on the Gyarados, I switch on over to Bite, doing about a third, and then I try and switch to Secret Power to see if that does any better. It looks like it's slightly worse, and then the Gyarados is left on 1 HP and paralyzed, so I'm able to easily take it out. And then after the Gyarados, I now have the move Aurora Beam taught over Sand Attack. This is a 65 base power ice type move that has a chance to lower the opponent's attack. It doesn't have a freeze chance though, sadly, but until I get Ice Beam from the game corner, this will suffice. It'll especially be helpful for the grass type gym too. And then I send the Marowak to hell by drowning it in water, and then I rescue Mr. Fuji and get the Poké Flute with a split time of 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 26 seconds. Umbreon, like Vaporeon before him, did not struggle with anything in Rock Tunnel at all. Plus, as you can see while I'm fighting Giovanni, I now have the Black Glasses equipped. This is an item that boosts the power of Dark type moves by 10%. You can find this item in the Rocket Hideout. So yeah, with the 10% boost to Dark type moves, I'm able to use Pursuit and deal extra damage, but unfortunately on the Kangaskhan, I run out of power points for it, so I have to rely on secret power. I get a lucky paralysis, and luckily, even though I'm only at 27 HP, a clutch paralysis is able to let me live, and I can take out his Kangaskhan. So yeah, if I didn't run out of pursuits, and if the Kangaskhan had actually broken through paralysis a couple of times, Umbreon definitely would have lost there. With Umbreon in the Celadon department store, I do the exact same thing and not buy any vitamins because I'm saving the money. And then on Rival 4, a secret power does half to Pidgeotto. Luckily it doesn't sand attack me. Then on the Gyarados, Intimidate lowers my attack, and then I go for secret power by mistake, doing a quarter. But then I realized it's not doing as much damage as I thought, but it'll still get the job done, so I just continue spamming it. And then on the Execute, I switch on over to Pursuit, which is actually able to one-shot it. And then I level up to level 35. And then on the Kadabra, I go for Secret Power because all Dark-type moves are special, so I wanted to use a physical move. And then on the Charmeleon, I end up getting Burned, which activates Synchronize. But the main thing is, Fire types cannot be burned, so I literally got burned and then Synchronize failed. So that's pretty funny. And then at the very top, I send away the Marowak, and then I rescue Mr. Fuji and get the Poké Flute with a time of 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 55 seconds. Alright, we just have 2 Pokemon to go. Let's see how Espeon does. On Giovanni number 1, Confusion one-shots his Onix, and then he sends out his Kangaskhan right away since his Kangaskhan knows Bite. I hit it with Confusion, and then it gets confused and hits itself, but it breaks out on the second turn and hits me with Mega Punch, doing pretty decent damage. And also, as you can see on my moveset, I now have the move Swift, which Espeon gets by level up. It's not going to be any better than Secret Power. I pretty much just have it in case Rival 4's Pidgeotto just hits me with Sand Attack or something. Speaking of Rival 4, the Pidgeotto goes for Quick Attack, and I'm able to one-shot it. Next up is the Gyarados. As usual, its Intimidate hits me. I go for Confusion, doing over half, so I think Espeon's actually the first one so far to actually deal more than half damage to it. Obviously, when I go over Jolteon, Jolteon's got Thunder Shock, it'll one-shot it, but that's not the point. Anyway, I go for Swift on Kadabra, barely missing the one-shot. I really should have gone for Secret Power due to the higher base damage. And then I just keep going for Swift on the Charmeleon for some reason. And then just like Umbreon, I get burned from Ember, Synchronize activates, Charmeleon cannot get burned, so then I switched over to Confusion and I actually knock it out. So seriously, what is it with Espeon getting really close calls lately in this run? Like, I think, what is this, the 3rd time Espeon actually won a fight in low health? And then I have Espeon chase off the Marowak, and I rescue Mr. Fuji and get the Poké Flute with a split time of 58 minutes and 52 seconds. After defeating Lieutenant Surge, he gives the TM for Shockwave. This is a 60 base power electric type move that's another clone of Swift, just like Feint Attack is. So I teach this to Jolteon for the same type attack bonus damage. And I'm sure you won't be surprised by this, but the main people I struggle with in Rock Tunnel are all the hikers. But luckily, some good news I now have is that at level 30, I now have the move Double Kick. But however, this still doesn't prevent the fact that I have very low HP and defense, and I'm weak to ground. So if I get hit with a magnitude, even if I'm not underground, it's still going to do a lot of damage, so I need to be careful. So as you can see right here, I actually saved before Hiker Dudley. Let's see if my save was good. On his Geodude, I keep misclicking and I go for 2 Shockwaves, and once I realize what I'm doing, I use 1 Double Kick. The Geodude just keeps spamming Defense Curl like an idiot, and then I knock out his first Geodude. Next up is the second Geodude. I go for Double Kick and it almost knocks it out. Then Geodude goes for Rock Throw, not doing that much. And then next up is the Graveler. I use Double Kick, doing over half. Luckily the Graveler does not use Magnitude, and I actually beat Hiker Dudley. So I do not want to know how much damage Magnitude would have done. So let's just move on from here. But let me show you something first. I want to be honest with how these challenges are going. I use Double Kick on the Pidgey, and then the Pidgey uses Whirlwind, sending out Rattata. At this point, I would just switch in my Jolteon back, but I wasn't paying attention, and I continued spamming A, which would have been Double Kick, and I actually knock out the Pidgey with Rattata, and then when I realized what happened, I'm like, oh no, because I technically used another Pokemon in battle. So I was thinking, okay, fine, I'm just gonna black out. But then I saw that the Oddish has no attacking moves, so I'm like, oh, this isn't good. So what I ended up deciding to do was just switch Jolteon back in and just finish off the fight. But here's the thing though, Jolteon is still going to get punished for this because it actually lost out on the experience it would have gotten otherwise. Plus, in the end, it was all a massive time loss. It's not like this really helped Jolteon in any way because it's still in last place, what do you expect? So yeah, I figured I may as well just be upfront and honest about it. Here's another thing though, in the Rocket hideout just before Giovanni there are these two guardsmen. One of them has a Sand Slash. I almost lose to this guy just because for a Sand Slash specifically, I really do not have a good answer for him. It's basically just spam double kick or dig. Like I really don't have a good answer for him, and I end up getting poisoned here and I almost lost. But then once he's done and out of the way, I can move on to Giovanni. I go for double kick, doing slightly less than half to his Onyx. He hits me with rage, and then the second set of double kicks does not knock it out, but the third set of double kicks does knock it out. Next up is the Rhyhorn. I go for double kick doing around half, I get hit with Stomp doing quite pathetic damage, but still the Rhyhorn also lives a double kick. I then level up to level 35, and the Kangaskhan is actually weak to fighting, but still that set of double kicks did only a third of damage to it, and then Jolteon barely ends up winning the fight in low health. So you can obviously tell Jolteon is really struggling through Leaf Green right now, mainly because of the abundance of rock and ground types in the mid game. Oh, here's another thing. I was on my way to get Fly, and I accidentally encountered the young couple Leah and Jed. They're the double battle right outside the gate towards the Fly house, and now you can see what my double battle overlay looks like for Leaf Green. So yeah, you almost never get to see this just because no double battle in this game is mandatory, so I just let my HM users faint, and I eventually take out the Ninetales and the Rapidash. Finally, after all of that drama, I can actually finally get to Rival 4. I knock out the Pidgeotto in one shot with Shockwave, and surprise surprise, the Gyarados is also a one shot with Shockwave. I level up to level 36, and now I have the opportunity to learn Pin Missile. I actually was thinking of teaching this, but in the end I decided against it and just move on. I could have used it on the Execute now that I think about it, because here's the thing, I did not need Quick Attack anymore. I really should have taught it at least just for this one fight. But still, I knock out the Execute with Shockwave, and then on the Kadabra, one Shockwave takes it out, and then on the Charmeleon, I go for a Shockwave, almost knocking it out. Luckily, the Ember doesn't burn me like it did with Espeon and Umbreon, and then I can take out Rival 4, and then on the Marowak, before I could send it to hell, the Marowak tried to send me to hell with that Bone Meringue, but then it actually did, and Jolteon gets a reset on the Marowak, so I guess Marowak got her revenge today. But no worries, on the next attempt, I actually send it to hell like it's supposed to, so nice try Marowak, nice try. I then rescue Mr. Fuji, and I get my 5th Poké Flute for a split time of 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 40 seconds. Holy cow, look how spread out these times are. Flareon is still in first place, but now Espeon is actually in second place by 4 minutes. Flareon and Espeon were the only ones that got sub-hour times. Meanwhile, Vaporeon is at an hour 2 while Umbreon's at an hour 3. And Jolteon is still leagues behind. Like, I don't know how many times I have to keep saying that, but I feel like I should. But now, at this point, is where I can start doing the boss rush, because I still have to take on Koga, Rival 5, Sabrina, Blaine, as well as the second Giovanni battle in Sylph. I feel like I shouldn't have to mention that, but since we're having Jolteon in the video, I probably should have said that earlier, but whatever. Anyway, let's talk about how these gym leaders go. You know, since we've been on Jolteon for a while, we may as well just keep going with Jolteon just to see what this area of the game looks like. With Jolteon, the first thing I do is go into the gatehouse on Route 12 south of Lavender Town, where in Gen 1 you would get Swift. In Gen 3, you get the TM for Return, which I immediately teach over Quick Attack. I'll be doing this with almost every Eeveelution. And then I continue going further south and defeat these fishermen, because one of these fishermen is a guy named Fisherman Elliot, and this guy with the Versus Seeker is actually the best way to train levels before the Elite Four. So like if I struggle with Giovanni or something, I can train on this guy. If I struggle with the Elite Four too, I can also train on this guy, because you may also think, why not just Blackout train? Blackout training takes a lot of time, and the Versus Seeker really doesn't take that long to recharge, plus Fisherman Elliot has 4 Pokemon, and if you add it all up, his Pokemon give you around 3,000 to 4,000 experience points per battle. He's also really good training if you're able to deal super effective damage to his team, like Jolteon can. And then once I defeat the fisherman all the way down to Fisherman Elliot, I fly back to Celadon City, and the first thing I do is go fight Erica. She leads off with her victory bell, and the first thing I do is go for return, doing half. I get hit with Stun Spore. Synchronize doesn't activate because Jolteon does not have Synchronize as an ability. Jolteon's ability is Volt Absorb, meaning if I get hit with an electric type move, it'll deal 0 damage. But then here's the thing on Victory Bell, by the time I finally defeat it, I'm in very low HP and I'm not able to move, so on the Tangela, I just reset. On the second attempt, I now have a second Cherry Berry that I got just outside of Rock Tunnel, and then on the Victory Bell, the Cherry Berry heals off the Stun Spore, but I'm not able to 2-shot the Victory Bell. So here's what I need to happen. I have to take it out with 2 returns, and then my Cherry Berry can heal off the Stun Spore. But before going back and trying again, I take out the rest of the gym trainers to get to level 40, which is over a damage rounding threshold. But however, I was actually an idiot, and while doing the gym trainer grinding, I accidentally left my Cherry Berry on, and I ended up losing it. So now at this point, the best case scenario is to hope for a Stun Spore miss or it uses something else. Which does happen 17 resets into the run. I take out the Victory Bell, and then the Tangela is a 2-shot with return. Now for the Vileplume. Return does around half, I get hit with Stun Spore, I can't move, get hit with Giga Drain, and then I'm able to keep on hitting return after return, and then I eventually defeat Erica and get the Rainbow Badge. Now at this point, I can wake up the Snorlax with the Poké Flute and go through Cycling Road. These bikers here are really hard to avoid with the bag manip just because of how close they are to each other. And then on the bicycle route here, I get the Rare Candy and the Max Elixir. I get these with every Pokemon I do. And then I enter Fuchsia City and go straight to the Safari Zone. The items I like to get here are the Full Restore, the Protein if anyone's able to use it, and then the Gold Teeth. I get Double Team just probably to sell, and then I get a Hidden Revive that's right here, and then I can go in here and get the HM for Surf. And then after this, I can either go take on Koga or Rival 5, and I choose to go straight to Koga. Koga starts off with his level 37 Coughing, and I'm level 42 after taking out some of his gym trainers. The Coughing is a 1-shot, and then the Muck only takes a quarter from Shockwave. But here's the thing though, it keeps spamming Minimize, but Shockwave ignores accuracy checks, so I will always be able to hit it. Although the fact that it's only doing a quarter is quite bad, especially since Sludge poisons me, and then the poison damage eventually knocks me out. On the second attempt, for some reason, I am not able to 1-shot the first Coughing and I get hit with a Smoke Screen. But luckily, like I said before, Shockwave always skips accuracy checks. But still, it doesn't matter. On the Muck, after I hit a Shockwave, it then hits me with Toxic, which is Bad Poison. Bad Poison basically starts off with normal poison, does a 16th of your HP every turn, but then it doubles to 1/8, and then it goes to a quarter, and then it stays at half of your health. So that's really bad, so I have to reset right away. I'm obviously being an idiot here. I should have equipped the Pecha Berry that I got from the SSM, but for some reason I just choose not to. So instead, what I choose to do is just leave and go to Saffron City instead. To be honest, I'm quite cringing at myself with how I'm playing this run. I really should have just equipped the Pecha Berry. But I think the main reason I didn't was because I knew the berries were limited, and I didn't want to use it right away if I didn't need to, but still, that's just a stupid reason. And then when I get into Silphco, I get the card key, and then I head on straight to Rival 5. Rival 5 starts off with his Pidgeot, and the first thing I do is go for Shockwave, obviously. It is so close, but it actually doesn't 1-shot. Alright, fine, moving on. Then the Gyarados, this thing will obviously die to a Shockwave. Luckily it does. And now next up is the Execute. I go for Shockwave only dealing a third, and then I get hit with Stun Spore. But I just continue moving on. But then the Confusion attack the Execute did ends up confusing me, and then I keep hitting myself, and then the Execute keeps hitting me, but then I'm able to take out the Execute at only 9 HP left while paralyzed. And on the Alakazam, the only attack it has is Future Sight, so I attack it with Return, I get to level 43, but then obviously the Charizard's going to finish me off. On the second attempt, I beat the Alakazam with 20 HP to spare, but then the Flamethrower finishes me off. So then I realized going here was not a good idea either, but I now know what I need to do. I sell a bunch of the high money items that I got from Saffron City, but then I realized I'm a bit short on the money needed for Thunderbolt from the Game Corner, so I come back to Silphco, get a bunch more of the high money items, and then once I get 80,000 Poké Dollars, I buy 4,000 coins from the game corner and get the TM for Thunderbolt. So with this move back to the muck, Thunderbolt, thanks to a critical hit, is almost able to one-shot it. But I think if it weren't for the crit, it probably would have just done around half. The disadvantage though is, now that I don't have Shockwave, I'm not able to skip accuracy checks, but now I'm able to move on to his second coughing, take it out in one hit, and now for the wheezing. I go for Thunderbolt, and thanks to a critical hit, I knock it out in one shot. And then I go back to Silphco and take on the rival again. This time, Thunderbolt is a one-shot on his Pidgeot, and obviously if Shockwave was a one-hit KO, Thunderbolt will be too. And then on the execute, one Thunderbolt does around half damage. I get hit with Stun Spore, but then the second Thunderbolt is able to take it out. Then on the Alakazam, I misclick and go for Thunderbolt. I meant to go for Return, but a critical hit knocks it out. And then the Charizard hits me with Smokescreen, and then I land a Thunderbolt knocking it out. You know what's stupid? I barely grew in levels. I only grew like 1 or 2 levels, and as you can see, these fights are now a huge difference thanks to Thunderbolt. So I honestly should have just gotten Thunderbolt a lot earlier in the run. You know, if I ever do any redos in Leaf Green at some point, Jolteon is definitely going to be one of them. I played horribly this run. But still, I can assure you for sure, this is not affecting Jolteon's results. It was going to be last place either way. And then at the very top, I can take out Giovanni number 2. I'm only going to talk about this fight with Jolteon because he's the only one who would actually struggle here. I knock out his first Nidorino with 2 Thunderbolts, but unfortunately I'm poisoned, so then on the Nidoqueen I go for Return, and then I realize I should probably not continue the fight while poisoned, so I get another reset. Then on the next attempt, I go for Dig, the Nidoqueen misses Poison Sting, and then I deal around a quarter, I'd say, but then Poison Sting ends up poisoning me. I keep moving on though, because even when I'm using Dig, Poison Point still has the chance to activate anyway, but I'm just hoping 3 digs are enough for the knockout. Unfortunately, it is not. It leaves it at 1 HP to spare, so I get another loss. Then on the Nidoqueen, Body Slam actually paralyzes me, which I actually think is preferable because thanks to being paralyzed, I cannot be poisoned. So then on the Kangaskhan, I can hit a Thunderbolt for over half, but then Kangaskhan's Mega Punch knocks me out. After some more losses, I just realized Giovanni number 2 is not going to work, and since I have Koga's badge and the Lapras, I can teach Surf and Strength to it and surf all the way down to Cinnabar Island. And then while I'm in here, I get the secret key which is needed to enter Blaine's gym, but I have to re-enter here a second time because I forgot the Braden rare candy. Because there's a scientist in here named Scientist Braden. He has a Magnemite, Voltorb, and a Magneton, and once you take him out, he gives access to a rare candy. So then after I get the rare candy, I use some PP ups on Thunderbolt, defeat all of the optional trainers in Blaine's gym, and go straight to Blaine. He starts off with his Growlithe, and the first thing I do is go for a Thunderbolt, and then it hits me with Intimidate, lowering my attack, but that's fine. Thunderbolt does not use physical attack. And then the Ponyta gets knocked out with 1 Thunderbolt. The Rapidash survives a Thunderbolt, but it just hits off a Fire Blast, so it's not that big a deal. And then on the Arcanine, Thunderbolt still does more than half, its Fire Blast does not knock me out, and I defeat Blaine. But I'm not going to split yet because there is still 2 trainers I need to defeat, Giovanni 2 and Sabrina. But before I do any of that, Bill invites me on a date to the Sevy Islands, and I choose to say yes. The main reason I say yes is because there is 1 extra rare candy here, and the whole Sevy Islands plotline during round 1 only takes like 4 or 5 minutes on 3 times speed, and all of that for 1 rare candy is definitely worth it to me. But actually, here's what I'm going to do. Jolteon has to do a bunch of Versus Seeker grinding to take out Giovanni, the gym leader, anyway, so I may as well do the training right now. So I go down further south on Route 12 and get another rare candy, and then I begin the Fisherman Elliott grinding. I'm going to talk about what team he has in his rematch team. He has a level 28 Poliwhirl, which after you defeat it gives 786 experience points. Then he has a Cloyster, which gives the most amount of XP on his team, which is 1218. And then the Sea King gives you 1020, and then the Seadra gives 930. And that's for 1 match against him. So then once I run for 100 steps, and then I activate the Versus Seeker, if I can get a rematch on him, I can easily farm that experience real fast. Also, while I'm doing the training, I never mentioned what experience group I'm in. All of the Eeveelutions are in the medium fast experience group, which is actually, if you don't count erratic or fluctuating, is actually the second worst experience group in the early game, but then once you get past level 68, it actually levels up faster than medium slow, so it becomes the second fastest. And then with Jolteon, after I finish grinding on Fisherman Elliot to level 60, I use all of my rare candies to get to level 71. And then on his Nidorino, one Thunderbolt just completely destroys it. And then on the Nidoqueen, watch this. I go for Dig, and then I hit it. It only does 2/3 damage. And that's being 30 levels higher. So yeah, that's awful. And then on the Kangaskhan, one Thunderbolt knocks it out. And then on the Rhyhorn, you pretty much have nothing to fear, so one Dig does the job. And then I liberate Silphco, and then I can just completely sweep Sabrina's team with Return, and get a boss rush split of 2 hours, 38 minutes, and 21 seconds. Holy cow, that is so high. But that's because I did all my Elliot training during the boss rush split. Almost no one has to do that. If you have to do your Elliot grinding during the boss rush, you know things are bad. So now with the other 4 Eeveelutions, I'm just going to be talking about the gym leaders, nothing else. After I do all the mandatory stuff on Cycling Road and the Safari Zone, the first gym leader I take on is Erica. I have a type advantage here because 2 of her 3 Pokemon are part poison type, and the one that isn't is just a weak Tangela, so I easily knock out her team. And the next gym leader I take on is Koga. Just like Erica, I also have a type advantage here, although on his Muck, it actually does not go down to 1 Psybeam, so it is able to use a Minimize or Toxic to completely ruin my life, but luckily it doesn't, and then I can take out the Coughing and the Wheezing real easily and then level up to level 40. The next mandatory battle I do is Rival 5 in Silphco. I also got the TM for Psychic while here because you can get it in Saffron City very easily. I teach it to Espeon over Confusion and I use all 3 of my PP ups on it, so now I have 16 Psychics. So on the Pidgeot here, I move Psychic to slot 1. It almost knocks out the Pidgeot, but not quite. But it doesn't matter. Then on the Gyarados, I just continue going with Psychic, and then it deals 2/3 of its HP. I get hit with Dragon Rage. I get hit to level 41. And then now for the Charizard, I use a Psychic for over half, and unfortunately I get hit with a Smoke Screen and a Scary Face. And then I just get destroyed with a Flamethrower, but luckily I live on 8 HP left, although with Smoke Screen up, I'm not too sure how well Espeon's gonna do. Then the Execute paralyzes me with Stun Spore, then Synchronize paralyzes it, but then like I stated earlier, the Alakazam's only attacking move is Future Sight, so I have 1 turn to try and knock it out, but I keep missing my returns and getting paralyzed, so the Alakazam is able to knock me out. That is my first reset with Espeon since the Brock split. Then on the second attempt, I get knocked out by Charizard. Same as the third attempt too. Then on the fourth attempt, I make it to the Execute with only 10 HP left. It Stun Spores me, which also in return paralyzes the Execute. Now I'm back to the Alakazam paralyzed. I am able to hit a return, doing less than half thanks to getting hit with Growl. But luckily, just before the Future Sight hits, I'm able to break through paralysis and actually knock out the Alakazam. That should not have been hard, but I really don't know what the alternative strat would have been. Maybe level 43 to guarantee the 2-hit on Charizard? I don't know. And then I defeat Giovanni real easily, get the rest of the high money items in Sylph, take out everybody in the fighting dojo for the experience that I need, because all of our Eeveelution friends will be doing Elliot grinding, but something I've ended up learning is if you have other trainers you can take out just one time, like the fighting dojo or gym trainers, you should prioritize doing them first before Elliot training. Elliot training should only be a last minute resort. And then I knock out Sabrina. I have 1 more gym leader to go, and that is Blaine. I skip all of his gym trainers. Blaine starts off with his Growlithe like before. I get hit with Intimidate, and then 1 Psychic is able to knock out the Growlithe. Then he sends out his Arcanine right away because the Arcanine has Bite. But then it just doesn't go for Bite, it goes for Fire Blast. And I'm able to knock it out with 2 Psychics. Then on the Ponyta, 1 Psychic completely destroys it thanks to a critical hit. Or maybe not thanks. Oh well, it doesn't matter. And then the Rapidash goes down to 1 Psychic, and Espeon gets a boss rush split of 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 7 seconds. Alrighty, now is Vaporeon's turn. The first major trainer I take on is Erica, and since I naturally get an ice move by level up, I may as well have a type advantage here, even though I'm a water type. That's just what a lot of water types have in newer games. Like, so many of them can learn ice type moves, it kind of makes grass types not that scary. And then before I take on Koga, I go east towards Route 15, and then I get this TM right here, which is the TM for Rain Dance. Because none of the Eeveelutions except Espeon have a move that can actually raise its own offensive capabilities. So if I use Rain Dance in combination with Surf, Rain Dance will give a 50% power boost to water moves. This is what I'm going to end up using for a bunch of major fights. And I can easily demonstrate that on Koga. So with a Rain Dance up, a Surf does around 2/3 damage to the Muck, which if it weren't for the Rain Dance, it would have only done around 1/3, but then the rain goes away while still on the Muck because I kept missing since it used Minimize, and then the Muck is able to poison me, and then I finally knock it out. Hopefully I can defeat his team in time, because now I'm on a timer. I knock out the Coughing with one Surf, and then on the Wheezing, my poison brings me down to 13 HP, and Surf actually one-shots the Wheezing. Heck yes to Rain Dance. Next up, I take on Rival 5. On his Pidgeot, it is obviously weak to ice moves, so I use Aurora Beam to do most of its damage, and then a second Aurora Beam knocks it out. Next up is the Execute. I just keep spamming Aurora Beam. Aurora Beam luckily knocks it out, so there's no need to worry about Stun Spore shenanigans. And then he sends out his Alakazam, which obviously can only attack with Future Sight, so 2 Surfs knocks it out. And then on the Gyarados, I can either use Aurora Beam or Bite, and I choose to go for Aurora Beam because there is the chance of an attack drop. But now that I think about it, I should probably have gone for Bite for the flinch chance, but whatever. And then on the Charizard, one Surf is able to knock it out. And then Giovanni is taken care of real easily. I get all the high money items in Sylph, and then I'm able to completely destroy Sabrina's team with Surf and Bite. I feel like I shouldn't need to mention Blaine because I'm obviously a water type, but I will mention that I actually do fight his gym trainers just because, like I said earlier, if I have to do Elliott training anyway for the Elite Four, do as much training on gym trainers and other people first because they will give more XP even if they're a one-time usage. So then, a bunch of Surfs and Rain Dances later, I take out the rest of his gym trainers, and then I take out Blaine himself and get a split of 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 26 seconds. Alright, we just have 2 more Pokemon to go. Umbreon, then Flareon, and then we can talk about the splits and go over the rest of the game. For Umbreon, the first major trainer I take on is Erica. I use Feint Attack to do over half, and then I get hit with a Stun Spore, and then Synchronize paralyzes the Victory Bell, and now next up is the Tangela. One Feint Attack surprisingly knocks it out. And then on the Vileplume, it goes for Giga Drain not doing that much, and then Feint Attack seems to be doing a third, I'd say? But then after a little bit, I'm able to knock out everything on Erica's team while paralyzed. Then in Koga's gym, I knock out every single optional trainer, and then I take on Koga himself. I'm level 42 for his first Coughing, and Feint Attack does not knock it out and I get hit with a Smoke Screen. But it doesn't matter because Feint Attack skips accuracy checks, so it literally does not matter this fight. And then on the Muck, Feint Attack seems to be doing a 5th, I'd say, and it just keeps spamming Minimize like an idiot, so I actually decided to use Confuse Ray, see if I can get it to start hitting itself, and then the next Feint Attack actually gets a critical hit. Then on the second Coughing, I get another critical hit and knock it out, and then on the Wheezing, I go for Feint Attack doing a quarter, I get hit with Toxic, and then Synchronize tries to poison the opponent, but it fails because Wheezing's a poison type, so now I'm on a timer to try and beat him before the Toxic kills me, which luckily I am able to accomplish. And then before leaving Fuchsia City, I talked to this guy right here in the Fuchsia City Zoo. This is the move tutor for Substitute. I'm gonna need Substitute for a lot of fights coming up, so I actually have Substitute taught on my moveset. Pretty much any Pokemon in this game can learn the tutor move Substitute, and I'm trying to utilize it more often in my runs because it can be very helpful with a lot of trainers, especially those who love to use Sand Attack and stuff. Rival 5. Speaking of Rival 5, that's exactly what I do. I set up Substitute on his Pidgeot to prevent myself from getting hit with Feather Dance or anything else like that. And then when the Gyarados comes out, it also prevents its own Intimidate, so I'm actually able to keep my attack stat intact. And unfortunately, the Gyarados knocks me out and I get a reset. So I take this opportunity to actually leave and go fight some optional Team Rocket Grunts to try and earn more experience. And then I try the rival fight again at level 45. So as soon as I make it back to the Gyarados, I go for return, doing over half, thanks to me not getting intimidated thanks to the substitute, and then I level up to level 46, and then on the Charizard, the first thing I do is set up another substitute, and then it hits Scary Face, which fails, and the funny thing is, the AI will sometimes just be too stupid and not recognize the substitute, because as you can see there, I got hit with another Scary Face. So yeah, that's just quite funny. And then Feint Attack one-shots the Execute and defeats the Alakazam very easily. And then at Sabrina, pretty much most of her Pokemon can't even hit me because I'm a Dark type, because there are pretty much no Dark types in Kanto, and most of her Pokemon pretty much have all Psychic moves. Except for the Venomoth with a Bug move, but let's just forget about the Venomoth, shall we? And then after Sabrina, I then head down to Cinnabar Island and take on the last gym leader for this split, Blaine. I'm not able to avoid the first Growlithe Intimidate because I'm not able to set up a substitute for it, but that's fine. I'm going to be spamming Feint Attack for this fight anyway. The Growlithe goes down to 2 Feint Attacks, as does the Ponyta. And then the next Pokemon out is Rapidash. Feint Attack does a third, and then it burns me with Fire Blast. Synchronize can't burn the Rapidash, so I decided I can't do this while burned. I'm going to reset and try again. On the second attempt, I actually set up a substitute, maybe because it can help prevent a burn from Fire Blast. So then once my substitute finally breaks, I use Confuse Ray on the Rapidash. It hits through Confusion, hits me with Fire Blast, and it actually burns me again. Seriously, what are the odds of that? On the third attempt, I'm able to actually get to the Arcanine. I go for Confuse Ray, but it breaks through and hits with Fire Blast, and I'm left at 19 HP left. I doubt I'm gonna win this fight. Yep, I was right to doubt that. So then at this point, I now have the move Attract on my moveset. The reason I make a lot of my Pokemon female in my solo runs is because a lot of very difficult trainers throughout Generation 3 will have male Pokemon. So if I am a female Pokemon, then that means Attract gives the opponent a 50% chance to not even hit me. An Infatuation from Attract never wears off unless I switch out or my Pokemon faints. So if I combine Substitute in combination with Attract, I could pretty much get a lot of turns of just not taking any damage. But however, on my first attempt with Attract, Rapidash burns me again. Seriously, what the hell? And then 8 resets into the run, I make it to the Arcanine without getting burned, but then the Arcanine itself burns me after I used Attract. What is this luck? After I've had a grand total of 10 resets, I just realized that with this amount of bad luck, I may as well just leave and go do other things. So Umbreon has to do Elliott training too, so I just do the training on Elliott right now. I could have fought the gym trainers in Blaine's gym first, but whatever. I don't do too much of it though. I only do some Elliott grinding up to level 53, which gives me a lot better ranges with Feint Attack. And then thanks to not getting burned for the millionth time, I am able to finish the boss rush split with a time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 7 seconds. Alright folks, just hang in with me. We now have Flareon to go. I know this is a lot of Pokemon, but this is a huge video, I warned you all. I do all the Safari Zone stuff, defeat Erica very easily since I'm a fire type, and then I get the coin case to buy Flamethrower later. And the next place I choose to go to isn't Koga, it's actually Silphco. I come here just to get the high money items and beat a bunch of the rocket grunts for the experience for later, because Flareon's also going to need Elliott training, so I just get some of the training out of the way now. And then once I get all the high money items, I dig out, go to the Celadon department store, sell them all, and then I can go to the game corner, get 4,000 coins, and I can get Flamethrower. This is a much needed upgrade over Ember. So then with Flamethrower obtained, I actually have leftover money, so I go to the top floor of the department store, and today's vitamin of the day is calcium. The thing is, I'm gonna need as much special attack as I can get, because I'm mostly gonna be relying on Flamethrower for a bunch of the Elite Four. And besides, I had the money to spare, so I just bought some vitamins. I didn't buy vitamins with any other Pokemon. I probably used some vitamins I found on the ground and probably didn't mention that, but I only really mentioned buying vitamins. And then as you can see here, I try to teach Sunny Day to my Flareon, but I misclick and accidentally teach it to Pidgey. That completely ruins my whole route, because I need to teach Sunny Day to Flareon for the same reason I taught Rain Dance to Vaporeon. So instead of starting over the whole run, I actually saved the game and I hacked in another Sunny Day TM to actually teach the Flareon. I think this is fair because the alternative would have been to completely start over the run, and I'm not going to do that over a misclick. And then I defeat Koga's gym trainers real easily, and now I can fight Koga. As usual, he starts off with his coughing. I set up Sunny Day. Also, I don't have an animation on screen for Sun because I haven't been able to find a good one, but if you're able to find a good one, please let me know in the comments where I can find it. And then with Sunny Day and Flamethrower, I almost one-shot the Muck, which is really impressive. And then once the Muck is taken down, I can take out the coughing and the wheezing right afterwards and beat him on the first try. Still at 0 resets, may I remind you. I really want to go to Cinnabar Island before Silphco, but since the Lapras is in Silphco, I have to compromise. I actually get the Good Rod and get a Goldeen in the water. Shout out to Gym Leader Matt for that strategy idea, because I really do not want to take out Rival 5 right now because I won't be able to. So I go to Cinnabar Island and enter the mansion. And then once I finish going through the mansion, I can dig out, defeat Blaine's gym trainers, and then challenge Blaine himself. On his Growlithe, I go for a turn 1 dig, and despite getting hit with an Intimidate, my attack is so high I'm still able to one-shot both it and the Ponyta. Will I be able to one-shot the Rapidash though? And the answer is no. I was close though, but then the Rapidash bounces in the air, falls back down and hits me, and I'm paralyzed. So now I just spam return because it's really dangerous to use dig when you're paralyzed. And then on the Arcanine, I get hit with a second Intimidate, but still, I'm paralyzed. I should not be going for dig. So I just keep spamming return after return, but then I get a clutch critical hit, and I'm able to defeat Blaine on the first try while paralyzed. Holy cow, what kind of run is this? And then afterwards, Bill invites me to a date to the Sevy Islands, and I say yes. And also, for anybody who does Blaine as their 7th gym leader, doing the Sevy Islands stuff actually counts for the next segment of the game, not the boss rush segment. So some Pokemon's times may be a little bit higher because of that, but it really shouldn't matter if almost everybody does it, at some point or another. And then on the Sevy Islands, I get the rare candy that's here, rescue Lost Tell, and I eventually make it back to the mainland. And then once I'm back to the mainland, I can now go take on Rival 5. I'm level 50 for his Pidgeot. I go for Return, which does the one-shot, and then next up is the Gyarados. This Gyarados actually does not have a water-type move, just Dragon and Dark-type moves. And then on the Gyarados, I go for Flamethrower boosted by Sunny Day, doing over half, and I'm able to take it out. Then on the Charizard, the Sunlight is strong, so I go for Flamethrower doing over half, but luckily Charizard didn't get the memo that it could use its own Flamethrower, but then once it actually uses its own Flamethrower, it activates Flash Fire, making my fire moves even stronger. Man, I really love it when that happens. And then I first try his whole entire team. And then I get the Lapras because I still need the Lapras for strength because Goldeen cannot learn strength. And then I take out Giovanni too, and I wipe out Sabrina's whole team and get a boss rush split of 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 25 seconds. Okay, things are definitely changing. Espeon is now in first place, but by only 20 seconds or so. Vaporeon is in second place closely behind, and then right behind it is Flareon, and then Umbreon is around 20 minutes behind Flareon, and Jolteon is still way at the bottom. I think we can pretty much say that Umbreon is probably out of this race, but every one of these evolutions has to do Elliott grinding at some point, or a massive amount of training at least. So maybe the fact that they did training in different orders probably skewed the results towards some Pokemon. But the next segment of this playthrough is when we can finally see it all come together. We're going to go over Giovanni, and then Rival 6, and then we'll enter the Pokemon League. And then once everybody enters the Pokemon League, we can go over the final 5 trainers. So now, let's look at the final area of the game. I think this time though, I'm going to start back with Umbreon. After I have Umbreon do the Sevy Islands section of the game like everybody else, I come back to the mainland and I can enter Giovanni's gym in Viridian City. The cool trainers that are in here each have 5 Pokemon that are near fully evolved, so they are very, very good training to do. So once I finish all the training for Giovanni, I'm at level 57. Another good reason to have Substitute here is that his lead Rhyhorn cannot use Scary Phase to make you slow. And then I can 3-shot his Nidoqueen. Unfortunately, it is able to break my Substitute, So then while it heals, I just keep going for Feint Attack, which was a mistake. I should have set my substitute back up, but whatever. Then on the Nidoking, I continue spamming Feint Attack while not setting substitute back up. Like, what am I doing? If any of those used Poison Sting, they could have poisoned me. But I guess I was probably being cocky because of how little damage I was taking from all of his attacks. And then I'm able to knock out his Ace Rhyhorn, and now I can move on to Rival 6. Rival 6 starts off with Pidgeot. I'm level 58. I set up a substitute because the rival still has Feather Dance here like last time. And besides, I want the substitute set up so the Gyarados can't hit me with Intimidate. But once I knock out the Pidgeot, the next Pokemon is Rhyhorn, who's very easy. The Execute is very easy one hit. And now here is the Gyarados. It actually has a water type move this time, but all it does is just go for Leer, I hit it with Return, and then Hydro Pump breaks my substitute, and then I break its spine with Return. Now for the Charizard, I go for Substitute in case he tries to use Scary Face, which I predicted correctly, and then 2 Feint Attacks is almost able to knock it out, so I have to use a third. And finally is the Alakazam. Even though it has an attacking move in Psychic, still, against a Dark type, has absolutely nothing that can hit me, so I'm able to completely sweep Rival 6. In Victory Road as well, there are a lot of cool trainers that have 5 Pokemon apiece, so if possible, if you have to still do Elia training for the league, wait at least until you finish Victory Road because of all the cool trainers that are here. And then I get the final rare candy that's in here, and after a bunch of training later, I get out of Victory Road and enter the Pokemon League building with a split time of 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 35 seconds. But I'm not going to split it just yet. I'm going to make the split when I save for the final 5 trainers because some of them are just going to enter the league and immediately go do a bit of Elia training, which is exactly what Umbreon does. At this moment, I'm around level 63, so I continue doing Elia training until level 65, which only was a couple of levels, not bad. And then I use all of my rare candies to get to level 78, which was the minimum level I needed at the start of the Elite Four. And I saved the game in preparation for the final 5 trainers in the Pokemon League with a final time of 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 8 seconds. Let's see how the others do. After Vaporeon finishes the Sevy Islands, I come back to the mainland and I actually buy some coins. I go back to Celadon City, buy coins at the game corner, where I'm able to use those coins to purchase 2 things. I'm going to purchase the Mystic Water to boost water type moves by 10%, and I'm going to purchase Ice Beam. This will be a very much needed upgrade over Aurora Beam. And with Ice Beam now on my moveset, I take out all of Giovanni's gym trainers and then sweep Giovanni's team with Surf spamming like it wasn't even a joke. It was just a full-on sweep. And then afterwards I can take on Rival 6. On his Pidgeot, Ice Beam is actually able to one-shot. Aurora Beam definitely would not have one-shot. And then Ice Beam one-shots the Execute. And then on his Alakazam, I choose to go for Bite instead of Surf, which was a mistake. A super effective Bite has an effective power of 120, a Stab Surf is around 142. So a Stab Surf would have done more damage, but whatever. And then on his Gyarados, I go for Ice Beam dealing around a third, and then the Gyarados hits me with Hydro Pump, and it activates my Water Absorb. When I get hit with a water move, it just heals my HP. So the Gyarados literally dealt negative damage to me, like it healed my health. Man, I'm just glad with all of these Pokemon, I've gotten to see their abilities activate. It's honestly real good to see abilities being useful in Gen 3. Most of them really aren't. Abilities don't start becoming useful till the newer gens, like Gens 4 and 5. Especially Gen 5 with a lot of hidden abilities they introduced. Man, really good. And then with Vaporeon, I make it to the Pokemon League building, use all of my rare candies because I don't have to do any Elia training. All the training that I've done up to this point in Victory Road has been enough. So I'm able to save the game for the final 5 trainers with a split time of 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 36 seconds. With Flareon, when I do the training in Giovanni's gym, I have to be careful because a bunch of their Pokemon have powerful ground-type Pokemon, so if they hit me with a ground-type attack, that'll be quite bad because Flareon's defense is not good. But luckily, so far, I'm still at 0 resets. And then on Giovanni's Rhyhorn, it unfortunately lands a Scary Face, so a bunch of his Pokemon will outspeed me. The Dugtrio goes for Slash, and I knock it out with Flamethrower. Then on the Nidoqueen, it goes for Earthquake, doing massive damage, and a second Flamethrower knocks it out. Hopefully I can win, but unfortunately the Nidoking goes for Earthquake, and now I have my very first reset. On the second attempt, I come back here with the move Substitute over Dig, because I'm going to have to do the same strat as Flareon to avoid that Scary Face, because that Scary Face was the main reason I lost. And then on this attempt, I'm able to take out Giovanni after leveling up to level 56. Now for Rival 6, I set up a substitute on Pidgeot, mostly because I really want to avoid Feather Dance, and then I set up the Sun, the substitute breaks, and then I have to set up a sub again to prevent Intimidate, but I forget to do that and just go for Flamethrower. Then on the Rhyhorn, I go for Flamethrower, knocking it out in one hit. Next up is the Gyarados, I get hit with an Intimidate. But oh well, I go for Flamethrower doing half, and I actually burn the Gyarados, but the Gyarados unfortunately sets up the rain, so I use this chance to set up a substitute, because then it'll go for Hydro Pump, knocking me out, but luckily it knocks out the substitute, and then I go for Sunny Day, which weakens Hydro Pump, and I'm actually able to live, and then a Flamethrower knocks it out after several burn chip damages. Then on the Charizard, Flamethrower does less than half, I get hit with Scary Face, and then it goes for Flamethrower, raising the power of my fire attacks, and then I'm able to knock out the rest of his team with great ease. I've said this many times, but I really love it when the AI does stupid shit like that. It's funny. But unfortunately, what's not funny is I actually get a reset on the Alakazam. But luckily on the next attempt that doesn't happen. And then, with Flareon, after I do a lot of the training in Victory Road that I can do, I enter the Pokemon League building, heal at the center, buy some full restores, and now I have to do Fisherman Elliott grinding. Because here's the thing, there are a lot of powerful water types in the league, most notably Lorelei's entire team and Lance's Gyarados. So I'm going to need a lot of training. I start the Elliott training around level 62, and I finish the Elliott training at level 66. Because now, after I use all of my rare candies, I can get to level 78 and save before the Elite Four with a time of 1 hour, 56 minutes, and 17 seconds. Jolteon is going to have a very hard time doing any of the training in Giovanni's gym. Because look right here, on the very first Cool Trainer Warren, I almost died on his Marowak. But then after the Marowak, one of his other Pokemon just knocks me out. But then look at this, on the next attempt, I'm actually able to beat him with almost none of my health lost. It was probably a critical hit Bone Meringue or something. And then I knock out the mandatory Black Belt. I skip all of the other trainers in here because Jolteon does not want to train here. And then on Giovanni's Rhyhorn, I go for Dig, it hits me with Scary Face, and then I go back underground. But here's the thing, look at my speed stat, 288. Even after a Scary Face, I still outspeed the Dugtrio. And if I can outspeed the Dugtrio, I can outspeed everything, because the Dugtrio is the fastest thing on his team. But unfortunately on the Nidoqueen, while I'm underground, it goes for Earthquake, doing massive damage, and then I just have to reset. Next time I come back here, I now have a moveset overhaul. I now have Substitute and Iron Tail on my moveset. Iron Tail you can only get at the Game Corner. This is pretty much Jolteon's only good way to deal with rock types, because Iron Tail is 100 base power compared to Dig's 60. So I just set up a substitute to try and prevent Scary Faces or sand attacks or anything like that. And I use Iron Tail on the Rhyhorn, I use Return on the Dugtrio, Iron Tail does more than half to the Nidoqueen, as well as the Nidoking, and then the final Rhyhorn is able to get destroyed thanks to Iron Tail. Yeah, you know a Pokemon's bad when it's got to use a non-stab Iron Tail. Anyway, now we're on the Pidgeot. I go for a Thunderbolt, which easily destroys it in one hit, and then on the Rhyhorn, I switch on over to Iron Tail. It misses, goes for Takedown, doing little damage. I miss another Iron Tail. Dude, you are not helping right now. And then I knock it out with a critical hit. Next up is the Execute. I go for Thunderbolt, doing the one-shot despite it not being very effective. And then on the Alakazam, one return does the job. And then finally, both his Gyarados and Charizard are weak to electric moves, so they are very easy to deal with. When I enter Victory Road, I actually realized I forgot to get Strength, so I have to get out and go get it. And then I leave Victory Road, get this Lumberry right here, which the Lumberry can help with Agatha, and then I enter the Pokemon League building, and I save before the final 5 trainers with a time of 2 hours, 52 minutes, and 33 seconds. Alright, now we've just got Espeon, and then we can go do the Elite Four. I finish up the Sevy Islands stuff, including getting the rare candy like usual, and then I do a bunch of the training in Giovanni's gym, and then on Giovanni himself, Having Psychic in combination with moves like Calm Mind, I can just set up my own special attack and just easily set myself up to one-shot almost everything, but for Giovanni, I don't even need a Calm Mind. Half of his team is weak to Psychic. And then after Giovanni, next up is rival number 6. On his first Pidgeot, I go for a Psychic, almost knocking it out, but luckily it doesn't use anything ridiculous. And then on the Rhyhorn, I go for another Psychic, knocking it out. And then on the Execute, I go for a Psychic, leaving it in low health. I really should have used at least one Calm Mind, I don't know why I didn't. But luckily, its own Solar Beams are not doing that much damage, and I'm able to wake up from sleep and knock it out. Then on the Gyarados, I get hit with Intimidate, I go for Psychic, dealing 2/3, it misses Hydro Pump luckily, and I'm able to knock out the Gyarados. Now for Charizard, Psychic does half, I lower its special defense, and then I get hit with Scary Face, and then Flamethrower, but I live on 17 HP left, I level up to level 52, I do not want Morning Sun because that move sucks, and then the Alakazam uses Future Sight like an idiot, but then Return doesn't do that much, and then I get knocked out. Luckily, I learned my lesson this time. I set up 2 Calm Minds, and then I'm able to completely sweep his team. I really should have done that in the first place. I then have to go back to Cinnabar Mansion because I forgot the Braden Rare Candy for some reason, and then I do a bunch of training in Victory Road, and once I finish up the training, I enter the Pokemon League building, buy all the items I need, and before I do anything, I actually go back to Saffron City, get a lot of the high money items I forgot, because I'm actually going to be purchasing something in an emergency. I'm actually going to purchase Shadow Ball. Even though this move is a physical damaging move, this could help with a bunch of other Psychic types, or it could help with Agatha, but we'll see. And for Espeon, I don't need to do any Elliott training. I'm level 55, I use all of my rare candies to get to level 68, and I save before the Elite Four with a time of 1 hour, 41 minutes, and 23 seconds. Well, things have definitely changed. Vaporeon has now taken the lead, and Espeon is 5 minutes behind, with Flareon in 3rd place, Umbreon in 4th, and Jolteon in dead last. So yeah, Umbreon definitely started to fall behind, but Umbreon really needed the training just because it cannot hit that well with anything. Flareon's able to do pretty consistently good due to its high attack stat. Jolteon has been consistently trash mainly because of Brock Tunnel, and all the Giovanni fights. Vaporeon has been consistently very good past Brock because of its access to very good water and ice moves. But now, we have to talk about the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. With Vaporeon, I start off by setting up a Rain Dance on the Dewgong, and then Surf is able to knock it out in one hit thanks to a crit. Not sure if it mattered, but let's just roll with it. Then on the Cloyster, once Surf knocks it out, fun fact, if it used Dive there, Surf would have done double damage. Anyway, then on the Slowbro, Surf does 2/3, it then goes for Amnesia, but luckily the Amnesia does not let it survive. And then on the Jinx, the rain finally stops. I go for Bite, doing over half, and the Jinx flinches luckily, so I'm able to take it out after a second bite. And this Lapras has Water Absorb, so it's completely immune to water moves just like Vaporeon. But then its own Body Slam paralyzes me. The whole plan is just to keep spamming Bite. I'm not going to use Ice Beam because Ice Beam only does 1/4 of the damage because it double resists ice. So I have to just keep spamming Bite over and over again. But luckily, I've got very good defense, and its Body Slams just don't do that much. But I'm hoping at some point the AI will play dumb and use Surf on me. But I think the AI is actually quite smart because maybe Lorelei knows not to use Surf, but I win on the first try nonetheless. Jolteon, though, I can tell you for sure, is going to have a really good time. It one-shots the Dewgong, the Cloyster, it one-shots the Slowbro, it almost one-shots the Jinx, but luckily it misses a Lovely Kiss, and I knock it and the Lapras out. For Flareon, the first thing I do is set up a Sunny Day, and then the Dewgong ruins it with Hail, so I got a Sunny Day again. Luckily it just wastes its turn with a Safeguard, so now I can start using Flamethrower. I almost one-shot the Dewgong, but it just goes for Hail again, so I have to set up the Sun. I remember having to do this annoying thing when I did Moltres in Leaf Green, and it was really annoying having to set the Sun up over and over. And then after the Dewgong's taken out, I one-shot the Cloyster, and hopefully I one-shot the Lapras. Yes, I do. And then the Slowbro's probably not going to be a one-shot because it's not part ice, so I set up a substitute just in case it tries to hit me with Yawn. So after I set up the substitute, I used for return doing 2/3. Luckily it tried to use Yawn but failed. and then I just keep using return, and once she stops spamming full restores, I eventually knock it out. And then finally on the Jinx, its defense is only 59, so one return easily knocks it out. For Espeon, a lot of these fights are going to come down to one thing: set up Calm Minds and spam Psychic. But actually, before I do the Elite Four, I actually entered Lorelei's chamber and I quickly reset because I realized Espeon can really benefit as well from Substitute. So I re-enter Lorelei's chamber with Substitute over Sand Attack, and now I have Shadow Ball over Return, because I'm only going to use Return for like the Psychic types, but if I'm going to hit the Psychic types, I may as well use Shadow Ball. So I set up a Substitute on the Dewgong, set up some Calm Minds, and then just spam Psychic on everybody. Finally is the Umbreon. I set up a Substitute on the Dewgong goes for Hail. Unfortunately, Hail still hits you through the Substitute, and then one Feint Attack does less than half to the Dewgong, but then I switch over to Return and that knocks it out. Then on the Cloyster, due to its much higher defense than special defense, I go for Feint Attack instead, and it's able to almost knock it out, but it left it on 1 HP, which is really annoying. Next up is the Slowbro. The Slowbro is part Psychic, so it dies in one shot to a Dark move. And then on the Lapras, Return does half damage, but unfortunately the second Return does not knock it out, and my Substitute is ruined. And sadly enough, the Citrus Berry does not put the Lapras out of full restore range, so it still gets a full restore. I don't even bother setting up a Substitute backup just because of how defensive I am, and then Return one-shots the Jinx right afterwards. Now for the Elite Four member, Bruno. For Vaporeon, both of his Onix are going to be a one-shot with Surf obviously, and then his fighting types have very high special defense, so that's what Rain Dance is for. If I set up one Rain Dance, they can both go down to one hit with Surf. Although thanks to a Rock Tomb, the Hitmonlee does outspeed me, but luckily it misses Mega Kick. And then luckily the Machamp does not outspeed me, so I take it and the final Onix out with Surf. For Jolteon, these Onix are the main reason I had to get Iron Tail. So I have to set up a Substitute to prevent my speed from going down. Although I'm so fast it probably doesn't matter, I'm mainly just trying to prevent Earthquake damage at this point. And then I knock out the Onix with 2 Iron Tails, and next up is his second Onix. I go for 1 Iron Tail, it hits me with Earthquake, breaking my Substitute, and then I go for a second Iron Tail. And then on the Hitmonchan, it almost goes down to 1 Thunderbolt, but it lives in very low health. But then the second Thunderbolt has an even worse range, so it's not able to go down in one hit, but the Hitmonlee doesn't go down in one hit either. But they're both 2 hits, it's not really a big deal. And then on the Machamp, it survives a Thunderbolt, it misses Scary Face, heals with a Citrus Berry, and Jolteon defeats Bruno. Flareon is not going to have too much of an easy time with Bruno, mostly because of his Onix and the fact that most of his fighting types have Rock Tomb. So I set up a Substitute on the Onix, and then I set up 1 Sunny Day, and now I begin the Flamethrower sweep. Flamethrower knocks out his first Onix, the Hitmonchan surprisingly, even though the Vaporeon couldn't. The Hitmonchan, the Machamp, hopefully it knocks out the second Onix, it does, and then on his final Pokemon Hitmonlee, I go for Flamethrower, but it lives on 1 HP, so I set up another Sunny Day, and then go for Flamethrower, get a better range, and I actually knock out Bruno's team. On the Onix, I set up a Substitute mostly to avoid the speed drops from Rock Tomb, and then I set up some Calm Minds while my Substitute is still up, and I basically just continue setting up until my Substitute breaks, which is at +3, and then Psychic is able to one-shot every single one of his Pokemon. Finally, we have Umbreon. Bruno has a type advantage due to the Dark type being weak to fighting. I set up a Substitute on Onix, and then 1 Feint Attack takes it out. Then on the Hitmonchan, I have to just go for Return at this point. Return isn't able to knock it out due to Hitmonchan's higher defense, but luckily like an idiot it goes for Rock Tomb due to it noticing that I outspeed it, and then on the Hitmonlee, I knock it out in 1 hit due to having not good as defense as the Hitmonchan, and then on the Machamp, I use a Tract on it to try and prevent Cross Chop. I misclick and go for a Feint Attack, and then it goes for Bulk Up, raising its defense. Uh-oh. But luckily it's immobilized by Love on the next turn. I keep spamming Return, it's immobilized. It uses a full restore, and then I get a critical hit Return, and I can knock out the Machamp. Then the second Onix is just an easy one-shot with Feint Attack. Now for the third Elite Four member, Agatha. Agatha leads off with her level 54 Gengar. With Vaporeon, I set up the Rain to deal more damage with Surf, but then I get hit with a Toxic, so that's an immediate reset. On my second attempt going into Agatha, I equip the Lumberry that's just outside the Pokemon League, and then I go for Rain Dance, Gengar uses Shadow Punch, not even using my Lumberry, really, and then Surf 1 hits the Golbat, and then Surf 1 hits the Gengar, the Golbat, the Arbok, and will it hit the second Gengar for a one-shot? Yes it will. The Gengar has really good special defense, so that's good to see. And pretty much Haunter can survive no Pokemon's attacks because it's real bad, so I knock out the Haunter real easily. For Jolteon, on the Gengar, I set up a substitute to prevent Confuse Ray or Toxic, and then it just goes for Double Team and I miss, of course. And then once I eventually hit it with Thunderbolt, it goes down in one hit. Then on the Golbat, it's obviously a one-shot due to it being weak to Thunderbolt. And then on the Arbok, my substitute blocks Intimidate, but that doesn't matter because I'm spamming Thunderbolt. And then on the second Gengar, Thunderbolt is able to take out the second Gengar in one hit, as well as the following Haunter. For Flareon, I set up a substitute as well. It just goes for Double Team. I set up the Sun, and then it goes for Confuse Ray, and substitute blocks that twice. And then once I'm able to finally hit Flamethrower, it takes it out in one hit. I get to level 79, and then with the Sun still up, I can knock out her Golbat and Arbok thanks to a critical hit. Then on the Gengar, the sunlight faded, so I have to set up Sunny Day again. It goes for Sludge Bomb, but my substitute remains strong. And then I one-shot the Gengar as well as the Haunter. Man, substitute is a real MVP for these Eeveelutions. Well, except for Vaporeon, but still. Just like Bruno before, Espeon has a type advantage here as well, since even though Agatha is the Ghost type specialist, all of her Pokemon are part Poison type. So I have my substitute up, I set up some Calm Minds, and then once my substitute breaks for the second time, with +2 in my special attack, every one of her Pokemon is a one-shot with Psychic. Finally, we have Umbreon. Umbreon also has a type advantage here because the Ghost type is weak to Dark. Although she does have a Golbat and an Arbok which aren't weak to Dark, but they're generally not that threatening anyway. So once I set up a substitute, just spamming Feint Attack is enough to do the job, as well as Return if I need to. Now we're moving on to the 4th Elite Four member, Lance. Lance leads off with a Gyarados, and Gyarados will always get off a free Intimidate even if I have substitute, because you can't substitute before the battle starts. Anyway, with Vaporeon, I just spam Ice Beam on the Gyarados, but then it wasn't doing as much damage as I thought, so I went for Bite and it gets a critical hit. Then on the Dragonair, I one-shot it with Ice Beam. I one-shot his second Dragonair with Ice Beam, and then his Dragonite is 4 times weak to Ice, so it is an easy one-shot. And then finally is his Aerodactyl. It outspeeds me by 2, so it's able to get a free wing attack, but it's not like that really mattered, so I defeat his whole team real easily. On his first Gyarados, I set up a substitute just to prevent any shenanigans from the rest of his team, and I knock out his Gyarados with one Thunderbolt. And then the Dragonair, Thunderbolt only does half, but then the Dragonair breaks my substitute with Outrage. And then on his second Dragonair, I go for Thunderbolt, it does half, and then it uses Thunder Wave on me, but that's what the Lumberry is for. And then once the Dragonite comes out, the Dragonite is neutral to Electric, not resisted like the Dragonair. So I tried to set up a substitute, but Outrage just breaks it. So I just go for Thunderbolt instead, it does half. And then the Citrus Berry heals it, but now the Dragonite is confused. It doesn't hit itself, and Hyper Beam gives me a reset. On the next attempt, when I make it back to the Dragonite, I have more health this time, so 2 Thunderbolts is able to take it out because I actually go for a Return first, so that way none of my Thunderbolts put it into full restore range. And then I outspeed the Aerodactyl by almost double, and then I knock it out in one shot with Thunderbolt. With Flareon, I set up a substitute, and luckily, the Gyarados does not have a Dragon-type move. And also luckily, my HP is just high enough to where one substitute will not break with a Dragon Rage. So then once the sun is up, I knock it out with a couple of flamethrowers. Then he sends out Aerodactyl right away, the sunlight is still strong. I don't set up another substitute for some reason like an idiot. I go for flamethrower, it hits me with Scary Face, and I immediately reset. Man, I am really cringing at some of these runs. I did some of these runs a while ago. Like, I think these Eeveelution runs were done in September. I remember doing these runs on my vacation. On the next attempt, when I make it back to the Aerodactyl, I go for Return like an idiot. I get hit with Ancient Power, and then my Citrus Berry heals me up, and then Flamethrower knocks it out. I think the Return was just to prevent the full restore range, but I should have set up a substitute. But luckily I do it on the Dragonite, and then I go set up another sunny day. I get hit with Hyper Beam, but luckily it has the recharge turn, so after I use one flamethrower, it does around half, it recharges. Will the second flamethrower knock it out? No, it does not. But then Flareon lives at 5 HP left, and then the Dragonite is in low red health, so I use one return to take it out, and then he's got 2 Dragonair left. Due to my very high attack stat, I could knock it out with return, but just to be safe, I'm going for flamethrower just because the sun is up. But on the final Dragonair, the sun goes down, I go for flamethrower anyway, it fails to get the knockout, and I get a loss. To be honest, I'm not sure the return would have been a one-shot, but I think it probably would have been just because it's not resisted. Flareon really struggles at Lance due to his rock and water types. Plus in general, his Pokemon are just very hard-hitting Pokemon. And then 8 resets into the run, I actually knock out his final Dragonair, I level up to level 80, and then I can move on to the champion. But before we can talk about the champion, we still have 2 more Eeveelutions. Starting with Espeon, I set up a substitute. Dragon Rage does not break my substitute, although the bite does. So then I was going to set up another substitute and spam Calm Mind, but I think +1 in special attack will be enough for the one-shot on everything. And I was right, because if it one-shots the Dragonite, it will one-shot the Dragonair, and then Espeon's ready for the champion. But we still have Umbreon. Gyarados enacts its Intimidate, I go for Substitute, Dragon Rage does not knock out my Substitute, and then I go for Feint Attack doing less than half, my Substitute breaks, and then I go for Return leaving it in yellow health. The Gyarados goes for Twister, luckily not in full restore range, and next up is the Aerodactyl. I obviously do not outspeed the Aerodactyl because Umbreon is already slower than a turd, so I just continue spamming Feint Attack on it until stuff happens. But then while I set up another substitute, I just realized I have Attract. I should probably use it. So I use Attract on the Aerodactyl to try and prevent it from knocking out my substitute, but I do knock it out. Then on the Dragonite, I also use Attract for the same reason. Feint Attack does a third, it's immobilized by Love. It does another third, immobilized by Love, hits the Citrus Berry, and then I go for Return and it gets a critical hit knocking it out. Finally are the 2 Dragonair. The first Feint Attack only does lightly more than half, and the second Feint Attack kills it. And then for the final Dragonair, I know it's going to be a 2-hit anyway, but luckily Lance pulls off the classic broken AI for Gen 3. The Dragonair tried to use Thunder Wave. Fun fact, when I start doing the second round in Fire Red and Leaf Green again, his first Gyarados has Thunder Wave. If you set up Substitute on that Gyarados, it'll infinitely spam Thunder Wave if you're faster than it. It is so funny. But now we are moving on to the champion, starting with Vaporeon yet again. The champion starts off with his Pidgeot. This Pidgeot is a really good target to set up Substitute because it has Sand Attack again, which you do not want to get hit by. But Ice Beam knocks out the Pidgeot and the Exeggutor right afterwards. I get to level 71, and then on the Alakazam, I set up my Rain Dance now, and then I go for Surf, and it completely destroys the Alakazam, and I just destroy 900 of these Rhydons. And then on the Gyarados, I get hit with Intimidate, and then I go for Surf doing a third, Gyarados goes for Dragon Rage, and then I go for Ice Beam, which does roughly the same amount of damage, I'd say. But then the champion uses a full restore, so I decided I should probably just spam Bite, because I could always get the flinch. But then the Gyarados starts going for Thrash, luckily I get a flinch, and then I go for Ice Beam, and it's able to get just enough damage to knock it out. Then for the Charizard, one Surf completely destroys it despite the rain not being up. And Vaporeon has beaten the champion with a time of 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 29 seconds, with 7 resets at level 71, and a game time at the Hall of Fame of 4 hours and 18 minutes. Now for Jolteon. Obviously the Pidgeot's going to be a one-shot, but before I one-shot it, I use this opportunity to set up my substitute. Plus, since Jolteon resists Aerial Ace, the Aerial Ace does not break my substitute. And then after one Thunderbolt of knocking it out, next up is the Rhydon. I use one Iron Tail to do around half. The Rhydon just uses Scary Face like an idiot, but then I miss an Iron Tail and it breaks my substitute. I don't bother setting my substitute back up because it looked like the second Iron Tail would have killed it, but I really should have been safe. Like, I really need to stop playing risky like that. And then Return knocks out the Alakazam, and then on the Exeggutor, I set up a substitute to prevent Sleep Powder from hitting me. And then Thunderbolt does a third, it keeps spamming Sleep Powder like an absolute dumbass, and I eventually knock it out with a critical hit. Now for the Gyarados. I obviously don't need to mention how much damage Thunderbolt does, so let's just move on to the Charizard. The Charizard is weak to electric type moves, so I knock it out in one hit, level up to level 79, and Jolteon defeats the champion with a time of 2 hours, 59 minutes, and 30 seconds with 29 resets, and a game time at the Hall of Fame of 6 hours and 41 minutes. Now it is Flareon's turn. I set up a substitute on the Pidgeot, it fails to land a sand attack, and then I go for Sunny Day, the Pidgeot keeps being dumb, and then one Flamethrower takes out the Pidgeot. Next up is the Rhydon. The Flamethrower almost knocks it out in one hit, so he is going to use a full restore, but while the champion uses a full restore, I go for one return to do a bit of chip damage, and then I go for Flamethrower. Then on the Gyarados, the sunlight fades, so I gotta set it back up again, and then Hydro Pump does not do much damage, but it does do enough to break my substitute. So I don't even bother setting up my substitute again. I go for Flamethrower, it does less than half. Then on the Charizard, I go for Return since my attack stat is almost 300. And then the Charizard uses Fire Blast on me, activating Flash Fire. So it just raises the attack of my fire moves even more. And then I knock out the Alakazam and the Exeggutor. And Flareon gets a final time of 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 46 seconds, with 8 resets at level 80, with a final game time of 5 hours and 11 minutes. Now for the Espeon. On the Pidgeot, I go for Psychic to kill it in one hit. I'm not using Substitute on Espeon for the champion, because now I have Reflect. I got this TM from the Celadon department store from the little girl you give a drink to. The main reason I have it is just so a bunch of the champion's physical attacks can do less damage, especially from the Rhydon. So after a whole battle of spamming Psychic with +2 special attack and using Shadow Ball on the Exeggutor, I defeat the champion with a time of 1 hour 49 minutes flat, with 6 resets at level 71, with a game time at the Hall of Fame of 4 hours and 28 minutes. Finally, we have Umbreon's results to talk about. On the Pidgeot, I go for Substitute just like usual, and then I use Attract on it to heavily reduce the chance of it landing any attacks. I mean, on the Pidgeot it was probably not necessary, but for some of his other Pokemon it will be necessary, and I can definitely tell you Alakazam is not one of them. And then on the Rhydon, I go for Feint Attack doing more than half, Earthquake breaks my substitute, but I'm able to knock it out in due time. Then on the Exeggutor, I set up a substitute to try and prevent Sleep Powder, which works. And then I go for Feint Attack, hopefully take it out in one hit, and luckily I do. And then on the Gyarados, the substitute blocks its Intimidate, Return does half, Thrash does not break my substitute, but unfortunately Return does not break its back. So now he's going to use a full restore, so I use this chance to reset up my substitute. And then I go for Attract on the Gyarados as well, hoping to last long enough to defeat him. But unfortunately, the Gyarados is being a huge pain in the butt because the rival keeps using full restores on it. And as you can see, my final substitute is set up with only 3 HP remaining. So once my substitute goes down, I'm on my own. But luckily, I finally take out the Gyarados, and now as his final Charizard, Feint Attack does a third, Slash does not break my substitute, I use Attract on it, it's immobilized, Feint Attack gets a lucky critical hit, and I defeat the champion on the first try, surprisingly, with a final time of 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 26 seconds, with 12 resets at level 80, with a final time at the Hall of Fame of 5 hours and 27 minutes. To be honest, this was pretty much only a race consisting of 3 Pokemon, but right now, Vaporeon has won the race with a fastest time of 1:42. Espeon followed shortly behind by 7 minutes with a 1:49. And then in third place is Flareon, followed by Umbreon, and then Jolteon. If you basically do not include Jolteon in these results, every other Pokemon really did pretty good, I'd say. But for a Fire Red and Leaf Green playthrough, these kind of times are not that good, because they all had to do a huge, absurd amount of training for Brock, and that always has to be taken into account. So if you take a look at our leaderboard, Vaporeon, the winner of this race, is only in 12th place. Like other Pokemon like Houndoom and Cloyster did better than it. But then in 14th place is Espeon, 20th place is Flareon, and then 22nd and 24th place are Umbreon and Jolteon. Jolteon only did better than the likes of Parasect and Smeargle, Poochyena and Shroomish, Swinub, Shedinja, and Wobbuffet. Like, you can honestly tell just how bad Jolteon is. But yeah, still, I hope you enjoyed this 5-in-1 race. This was a lot of work for me to make, probably the hardest video for the entire month, but I think it'll be worth it in the end, and I hope you all did too. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow my socials or support me on Patreon or YouTube memberships. Links are down below. And the next run in the Speedrunner 028 December Mania will be Pokemon Emerald. We will be doing the Hoenn Legendary Trio, Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. Some of the most OP legendaries of all time. Can't wait to see how they do, and I'll see you all in the next one.